My name is Jeff Fassbinder, and we're going to finish up the radio installation of the 3GX with a receiver, and we're going to get the servos 90. In order to do so, you're going to need to be able to power your 3GX. And right now what I'm doing is I'm using just a regulator and the a 7.4 lithium polymer battery just to do the setup. You could do this simply by hooking up the battery wire to the motor and the ESC, but I'm just doing this as a pass-through so that way it's easier to do and I don't have to disconnect the motor wires. So let's go ahead and get started here. I've ran the motor wire, or I should say the wires through the frame, and I still need to get these Velcro down. One thing you are going to want to do is get a piece of sandpaper in any areas where there's contact to the frame, and simply take your sandpaper and take off the edge of the carbon. You just want a radius, you want to dull down the sharp edge. Take it down on both sides there, and make sure you take that down so it's smooth, and that way it doesn't chafe your wiring. That will cause a short if it does chafe, if it grounds out to the carbon frame. Okay, so any areas where you have that, you want to do that. Okay, so I got my radio powered up. I have looked at the manual, and then as far as the Swash menu numbers, that gives you some targets to utilize. So on the Swash, 45 aileron, 45 on elevator, and 29 on pitch currently. Okay, so we're going to check that out, and now we're going to turn on the power to the 3GX. Alright. Okay. Disconnect the throttle. That's the speed control. I was making that beeping sound. Okay, you notice right now on the 3GX there's two red lights. The reason there's two red lights, let me power down this. Always helpful to have a spare battery. Let's pop another battery in the rear radio real quick here. And we'll switch that on. But the reason, like I was saying, the red light is on the 3GX is due to the fact that I'm in normal mode on my gyro in my radio. So I'll turn that, and I'll show you how that turns from green to red by switching back and forth between head lock within the radio and normal mode. So let me pull up my gyro menu, and inside my radio and gyro, if you watch that light there, just between normal and headlock, its headlock is green, normal turns red. So that's what's going on with the 3GX there. As far as rate on the gyro, target is probably about 34%. The reason I do normal is just for when I'm setting up the tail and setting the endpoints with the 3GX. So let's go ahead and just 90 out the servos. Make sure everything's 90'd out. If it's not, simply loosen up the servo horns. You can loosen these up and back them off the horns, and then set them up so that they are as close to 90 as possible. And then once you have done that, if you see any misalignment in the Swash itself, simply go to your radio and go to your sub-trim menu, and you can make any minute corrections that way. If there's any large adjustments after all your servos are 90 degrees, then you need to make some mechanical adjustments. But if you've followed the manual and utilized the measurements given to you, you should be very close to being at your target. So there might be some minute measurements that you might have to adjust, like I say, within sub trim, and that's relatively easy to do. Okay, before I get started with trimming, or should I say pitching the helicopter, we need to program the 3GX. So let me walk you through that. That's the other reason why I'm using this, just as a backup battery, kind of plug through. It's easy to do this with one person. I'm going to hold down the set button, and I'm going to turn on the power to the 3GX. Okay, let's do that again. Hold it down. You hold it down and before it gets to the last one. Okay, now what that's done is, and you notice the 3GX is not mounted yet because we're still finishing up the wiring. But I jiggle this around and you notice the gyros are not doing anything. Alright, that is due to the fact that we're in DIR mode. And so hold set button, turn on the power, and while holding that down, before it gets to the last LED, let go of the set button and you'll be in DIR when those two green lights are lit up. Alright, this lets us check out our swash movement, make sure we don't have any binding, no interaction of travel or anything like that. We can check everything out. So what you want to do though when setting up the DIR mode, you want to make sure you're zeroed out as far as on your menu. You're at 50% on the throttle. All your sticks are neutral because we're about to calibrate. So let me move the helicopter off a little bit and just show you on the radio here. So I'm going to go in here in the radio and we're going to calibrate the elevator. Okay, again, we've already done the swash. The swash, we're at about 50%, and you can adjust that. If you are going to make any adjustments to your swash, you want to recalibrate your DIR, and it's very simple. You'll see right now. So we're in DIR mode. Now we're going to hit set. We're going to calibrate the elevator first, just forward movement on your stick. Alright, and that calibrates the endpoint adjustment. Now we're going to check the direction of the helicopter, the swash. Helicopter tips forward, swash tilts aft. That's what we want. So that is correct. Now if it were wrong for some reason, we'd simply move the stick aft, and you notice the light changed directions. That's reversing the gyro orientation, and then the swash would tilt forward as we tilt the helicopter forward. That's not what we want. So we need to make that turn back to green. That's what we want. Check it again. It's tilting aft as the helicopter tilts forward, and that's correct. Now we're going to do the aileron. Simply, again, move the stick, but move it to the right for aileron. Go back to center, and that calibrates the endpoint for aileron. Now let's check it again. Let's make sure that that's correct. When to the helicopter left, the swash is tilting up or tilting down on the right. That is correct. Again, same process. If it was reversed, you'd give a stick input. It would turn that red, and it would give opposite input. Alright, so we don't want that. So we want to go back to green, check it, and everything is working fine there. So let's go ahead and... Alright, so that's done. Now we need to set up our tail. And the tail is very simple. Same thing as doing the DIR there. We're gonna set that up, and so you can see that. Alright, so the tail, again, I had it in gyro mode. I put it in normal in my gyro menu. Alright, so we're normal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up. Okay, I'll put it, there's headlock mode. It's green. I want to leave it in green, that way you can see the colors if something were to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this down. I'm not turning off the power now. I'm just leaving the power as it is, pressing down. Okay, green light's turned on. Now we're going to set up the tail. Okay, right now the first one, the first screen, it says 1520 or 760. We want to leave it green at 15. The next one is digital or analog. We want to stay digital, so we want to stay green. And then it's gyro direction. We need to check that, make sure, give a left input, left input. Left input, if we give a right helicopter movement, it should be moving, the carbon rod here should be moving back to give a left input. And if you are unfamiliar with setting up a helicopter, again, the tail, if you're looking at the tail blade here, from the back of the helicopter, it's just like a rudder on an airplane. If you look at it, if it goes to the left, it's going left. The nose is going to go left on the helicopter, and if it goes right, the nose of the helicopter is going to go right. So that's how that works, just like on an airplane. So just a note there. But right now, we want a left input. We're torquing towards the right, and right now it's reversed. So what do we need to do? We need to go in here, and we need to change that. So now that light is green now. So let's check it, check the movement. Let's look at it. Now it's moving aft, and that's what we want. Now the next thing we need to do is set the endpoints. Alright, simply move the stick left first and watch the yoke. Get it close as you can to the hub without binding. And once you found that place where it's not binding, wait till it turns red on the 3GX. Once it turns red, move to the right. Calibrate it, get it as close as you can, but not touching or binding. Wait till it turns red. Now that's calibrated. Now you're going to go into the delay, the last LED. This is to set up your helicopter, whether it's a 250 to 450. So if you go to red, that's 250 or 450. That's not what we want. This is from 500 to 700. We want it to be green. Select the set button one last time. Now you've set up your 3GX. It's all set up there. Okay, so the only thing we need to set up now is to check the pitch. So, and make sure that our settings were correct. So in order to do that, we'll use the included gauge. We'll pop this on the top. This is a pitch gauge, or it's called a pitch gauge inside of your manual. You put that on the top of your rotor head here. That's why I've removed the head button. We'll put that on, and we'll use the included, this flybar rod guide. That's included with your boom package when you're assembling your helicopter. Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn this like this so I can look at the pitch, make sure we're zeroed out, and let's get our pitch gauge. I'm using the line one here, so we'll use this. And again, as I mentioned in the build video, it does have measurements, so you can use it as a ruler on the top, so that's a nice thing to have, so you don't have to have as many tools around. And at this point, you want to make sure that you're in your pitch menu, or pitch curve. Right now, you're just 100, 100, you're linear, and there's no interaction or anything going on. So we're going to go ahead and take a look, see while we built our rods and everything, and go to the center stick. And if you're going to be setting up for 3D, you're going to want to try and achieve 0 degrees pitch. Okay. And right now, I'm at 0. So we're at 0 degrees there. So that's what we want. As far as top end pitch, I'm going to go all the way up. I'll take a reading. And what you're doing right now is just siding the top plane of the pitch gauge with this bar here, and you want them to become parallel. That's how you achieve your pitch. So right now, pitch wise, I'm at 12 degrees on the top. Positive. When I say on top, I mean positive. And then when I side it down the blade here, at the tip of the blade, we're on the tip of the blade here, we want to get it close as we can. Okay, right now it is -11, so I'm 1 degree off. So what I could do is I could split the two if I wanted to. Split the two to make it symmetrical. And what I do is I pop the links here on both sides. And what I do is I turn this in. Use your ball link pliers to hold on to it, the rod, and just do that. Alright, and then do the other side. and then we'll check it. Check it again here. And let's do that. Alright, we're at 11.5 negative, and now when we go positive, we're at 11.5 as well. Alright, so now we're linear both top and bottom. Let's check our 0 point again at 50. We're right at 50 here. See if we've knocked that out at all. We may have gone maybe half a degree, let's see. No, it's right there at 0. So we're right there, we're linear, and so that's how we set up our pitch. For cyclic, simply give a cyclic input on your radio, and depending on what you want to be doing, whether it's just sport flying or 3D flying, give an input and look down the blade again and check out what you want. For sport flying, you know, 8 or 9 degrees is pretty good. For 3D, if you're going to be low to the deck doing fast stick movements, you know, 11 degrees is pretty aggressive. Right now it's set up to 11 degrees. So you can set it up however you like. You go in your Swash menu to lessen or increase. And again, if you are going to do any modifications to that, you're going to want to redo the DIR process. You don't have to redo the tail or anything like that, but just redo the DIR so that way the gyro is going to perform to its best. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let me get you some close-ups here of the helicopter so you can see the wiring. Right now it's still a little loose, but kind of give you some ideas where you can route your wires and get going. The trays, you'll notice there's still 2 screws here, and that's for the lower tray right here. This pushes in, there's actually 2 screws, and they'll go into this unit here. And on my receiver, we do have supplied pads here. They're double-sided pads, one for the 3GX and then one for my receiver. I'm going to go ahead and get my bolts for my head button here. We'll put this on, and then you can put your head button back on here, like this. Okay, but again, if you're setting up your helicopter, once you get your radio on and you get to that point where the radio's on, you want to make sure that those silver horns were loose and that you are 90'd out as far as the control horns prior to hooking it up to the Swash. If they are off, simply, again, unscrew those screws on your servos, pull those off, try and get it as close as you can, depending on the spline location, and then get it there. If it's a little off center, you use your sub trim. You want to make sure that your Swash is level. Alright, so that's going to make your helicopter fly a whole lot better. Let's put that aside there. Got our head button on, and then what I'll do is I'll come over here so you can see it. I'm going to see if I can get a close-up for you so you can see the wiring. Just 1 second. Let me see. Okay. Servo arms 90, that's what you want. Okay, the wiring from the front, the aileron and pitch servo, those 2 wires are running aft inside the frame there. I have them routed going inside the frame. The elevator is over the top there and looping out the side. And then I'm running the direct wires from the receiver on up to the 3GX. Power's fed in through the wire that's hanging there. That is the throttle channel, but right now we're just using a alternate power source just for doing the setup on the bench there. Okay, that's because I don't have the DEAMs yet soldered on my battery pack or the ESC, but once we're done with all this setup, that's a simple matter. But I did want to get you the shot of that wiring there. So let's get that there so you can see that. Alright, and so on the wiring here, okay, there is a plastic insert right there on the side. You want to get your wires and snug them up to the side of the frames. But anywhere where there's carbon here, like I showed you just a little while ago, you do want to get a little piece of sandpaper and basically knock it down. Knock it down just a little bit on both sides, so that way it's smooth and it won't chafe your wire. That'll make your wires a lot happier, keep you a lot happier, because if you do happen to chafe a wire, you can cause, you know, problems for your flight controls. So it's a good idea to do that. It takes only seconds, and it'll make your wires last a whole lot longer. So it's ready to go there. If you look at it, it's moving there, up, back, and so it's ready to fly. So I'm gonna try and get to you some flight video, if hopefully later today. Again, if you have limited time, you can put the Trex 500 EFL Pro together in roughly about 4 to 5 hours. If you've never built a helicopter before, it might take you a little bit longer to get the general assembly done, but I think that you'll find it an enjoyable build, and one that you can achieve successfully. So hope to see you at the field.